All right, so the Navy SEALs have this saying, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And when I first heard that, I was in my early 20s, and I remember thinking, stupid Navy SEALs, why in the world would you want to do that? That goes against human nature. We're not supposed to be uncomfortable. Anybody who is into physical fitness knows that old no pain, no gain, not really how it goes. If you're hurting, you're probably doing something wrong. If it hurts badly, you really screwed up. Now, the Navy SEALs are talking about physical discomfort, yeah, but they're also talking about psychological discomfort. And if you don't know what a Navy SEAL has to go through, imagine like your worst gym class that you ever had, multiply it by about 1,000, now subtract about 90 to 95% of the sleep you got the night before, and that's about what it takes to be a Navy SEAL. So why am I talking about that? Didn't I just say that being in pain and if it hurts and all of that stuff, didn't I just say that was bad? Well, there's a difference between pain and discomfort. There's a difference between harming yourself and pushing yourself. I'm not talking about doing extreme psychological damage to yourself so much so that you're going to have PTSD when it's all over. And I'm not talking about physically pushing yourself until your legs fall off. I'm talking about doing something that's hard, something that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, because it's going to teach you something in the end. So let's start with something familiar. How many of you want to get all A's in all your classes? Okay, that's good. Good show of hands. Perfect 4.0. That's what we've been taught. That's what we've been conditioned to want, what we're taught we should get in order to be the best. Now think about those classes that you've gotten that perfect 4.0 in. My guess is some of you worked your tails off for that 4 Some of you, it just came easy and you kind of coasted. And some of you maybe got lucky with a professor that just handed out an A and you didn't really have to do anything. So who learned more? The person who coasted, the person who just got the A for showing up, or the person who absolutely worked their tails off? You guys have been conditioned to not only want A's, but maybe to value them above anything else, including how hard you worked. And when you get a B in a class that you worked really, really hard in, you see this as a failure a lot of times. I don't see it that way. I see it as a success, because I see it as you worked. You worked at something, and because you can't work on one thing, and one thing only 100% of the time, you aren't always going to get that A. An A, in some way, shape, or form, equals expertise. And there's this statistic out there floating around that says in order to be an expert at something, you need to spend, anybody know that statistic off the top of your head? 10,000 hours. You need to spend 10,000 hours working at something to be considered an expert at it. So let's math it out. If you worked for 40 hours a week, let's say it's your full-time job, and you spent 50 weeks a year working on it, so we'll give you 2 weeks off for vacation time, how many years would you have to work to be an expert? So 40 hours a week times 50 weeks a year, 5 years. 5 years doing only that one thing in order to be considered an expert. And that assumes that's all you're working on, which we all know is not the way it works. You push yourself to get A's. Maybe you should push yourself to take classes where you know you won't get that A. One of my biggest disappointments in my life is that I don't understand physics. I used to make a joke. I still make a joke out of it. I didn't used to make a joke out of it. I still make a joke out of it. Ha ha, I have no idea how physics works. The diagrams and the, gravity is 9 point whatever it is, meters per second squared. It didn't make sense to me at all. And I used to and still joke that I went and majored in communication because I wasn't sciencey enough and I didn't understand the science behind it. And that was a comfortable joke for me to make because it hides what I, for a long time, saw as a failure. So here's what happened. I took physics in high school, promptly got a B- in it, barely got a B- in it, after having been a straight A student, and was immediately horrified, one, at the fact that I got a B- after getting all A's, and two, at the fact that I couldn't do it. I couldn't understand it. So I quit. I figured if I wasn't good at it, I shouldn't do it. So my little self-disclosure here, my therapist once told me that for the most part, people take the path of least resistance. And in a lot of cases, that's okay. It makes sense. I became a professor because of all the things that I enjoy, all the issues I have, all the positive and negative emotional baggage. I like talking about communication, but I also don't like that one-on-one chit-chat kinds of stuff. So, you know, small talk, not really my game. So imagine how many like awkward bad dates I went on before I met my husband. A lot. But I love learning, I love academia, I love summer vacations. So it all kind of adds up to, yeah, you know what, you should be a professor. There's a difference, though, between trying to fight your natural talents and your natural likes and dislikes and not trying at all. So what happens if you work your tail off and you only get a C? My GPA, you cry. To which I say, it is so rare that an employer is ever going to deny you a job because your GPA starts with a 2 or a 3 instead of a 4. My scholarship, you cry. Well, surely some things come more easily to you than other things, so you're probably getting A's in classes to maybe balance out that C. My self-worth, you scream. To which I say, hold up. If you worked hard and the best you could do was a C, well, what did you learn? For one thing, you learned, about 70 to 75% of the material. But you also learned perseverance. You learned hard work. You learned what it takes for you to muscle through something difficult and come out the other side. And at the end of the day, you also learned how to handle failure. And that right there is invaluable. You learned how to handle your shortcomings, knowledge that you aren't amazing at something, disappointment, defeat. You learned how to handle not getting an A. That right there is worth a ton. Again, I'm not talking about taking a class and skipping it, not caring about it, and getting a C. I'm not talking about taking a class and you know what I'm talking about. You kind of skim the chapter and study a little bit and you get a C. I'm talking about doing everything in your power to do the very best you can do and still only managing a C, still coming up short. I'm talking about me in a physics class. It's okay to try and fail. It's not okay to not try. It's not okay to fail, but it's okay to try and then to fail. And I should say fail in quotation marks because a B or a C really isn't failing after all. You learn more about who you are by failing, by not being amazing at something. I learned that I based a lot of my self-esteem and self-worth on grades that other people were writing down on my report cards. And what kind of a lesson is that if we feel that self-esteem should come from within and I need somebody external to validate me, to validate my intelligence, to validate my drive? It's a pretty crummy lesson, really. So let's broaden the scope a little bit. Author named Todd Wilms wrote in a 2012 Forbes article, "The best ideas are cultivated from an uncomfortable place." Love that quote. The best ideas are cultivated, it's a little early for me, from an uncomfortable place. We don't like discomfort or dissonance. Most communication scholars, so we're going to get academic for a minute, most communication scholars, can talk intelligently about a theory called cognitive dissonance theory, where you hold two beliefs that are conflicting, or you believe one thing and yet you do another thing. So you say, oh, ha ha ha, I know caffeine is so terrible for me, as you're down in that 24-ounce caramel macchiato with an extra shot. Discomfort motivates us, though, because we want to resolve that discomfort. In other words, we can motivate ourselves by making ourselves uncomfortable. By taking, let's say, a class you know is going to be hard for you. Think about the implications there for a minute. If you make yourself uncomfortable, you're going to have to do something to resolve it. You'll be driven to resolve it. So what if you spend your time making yourself uncomfortable in ways you know are going to push you to become something better, or thinking more broadly, to make the world a better place? There's a concept that researchers call desirable difficulty. It's a term coined by a researcher named Robert Bjork, like Bjork, like the musician, who studies learning. Desirable difficulties are disadvantages that force an individual to adapt and be better prepared against future difficulties. And in a 2010 New York Times article, Benedict Carey says the following: "The more mental sweat it takes to dig information out, the more securely it will subsequently be anchored. In other words, the harder you work to learn, the more you learn. You aren't going to walk out of here and get a job, get a career, and be awesome at it, be perfect at it right off the bat. You can't get an A at a job. It doesn't work that way. Things are going to be difficult. But if you spend your time here in college making yourselves uncomfortable, you can become really skilled at not only dealing with that discomfort, but also at making yourselves uncomfortable. So maybe by using the word uncomfortable makes some of you uncomfortable, so step in the right direction. People tell you all the time, I know you hear this, oh, enjoy the college experience. And what they're talking about is the academics, the socializing, all of the opportunities that you have, all of the organizations, all of the events on campus. Well, that's what I mean too, but I mean that and more. Do something every day that makes you uncomfortable. Every single day. You can start small. If you're like me, you go to your favorite restaurant and you always order the exact same thing. All the time. For me, I think, well, what if I order the sushi roll and it has eel on it? What if I don't like eel? Well, so what? So I learned I don't like eel. I also learned how to eat something I don't like without making a big scene out of it. I learned how to handle the aftermath of eating something I don't enjoy. I learned something about myself. Here's another example. When I decided to take up sewing as a hobby, I made a lot of really crummy stuff. I made skirts with hems that were really uneven. I made purses and handbags that no one in their right mind would ever carry. I made dresses and pants with zippers installed so poorly that my mom, who's been, this amazing seamstress for 40 years, looked at it and went, "What did you even do? I don't even know how you did this. What did you do?" And I forced myself to wear and carry all of those ugly, hideous, poorly made things because it made me uncomfortable. It motivated me to learn how to install a zipper the right way, to learn how to make buttonholes because no grown-up wears clothing that Velcros. It motivated me to get better at things. Even looking at some of the stuff was enough. I know it's a goofy little example, but it drives the point home. I wanted to make my own stuff and have it not look homemade. I made my own stuff, and it did look homemade, and I made myself wear the ugly homemade stuff so that it would motivate me to improve. And I got what I wanted. I got better. I got skills. Think about how you could incorporate that into your own lives. And these things don't have to be huge, life-changing events either. They can be, but they don't have to be. Maybe you're naturally shy. Maybe you don't like public speaking. Start really small. Volunteer a comment in class every now and then. You can work up from there. Maybe have some sort of speaking engagement in front of a small group of people, much like this. And who knows, maybe years from now you'll end up singing karaoke every Saturday night at the dive bar down the street from your house. Maybe you'll become a professor where you have to talk in front of people literally every single day of your lives. Who knows, right? And then think even bigger than that. Think about how the world works. Think about all the things you don't like about how the world works. You don't like racist language. You don't like stereotypes. You don't like unfairness. You can do something about it. Taking the path of least resistance, going with the flow, is so much easier. Doesn't make us feel uncomfortable. We don't like to stand out. We want to be part of the crowd. But then nothing changes either. Challenge the person who said the sexist thing or the racist thing. It's going to make you uncomfortable, but in the end, you might get what you want, change. And then think even bigger than that. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and there's literally nothing you can't do. There might be things at which you're not going to succeed, but there's nothing you can't at least attempt. And you can learn something from every single experience that you've had. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you can go out and change your world. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you can go out and change the world. Thank you.